You cannot do that because we don't want to leave here with more problems than we came with. I noticed the way she was being talked about in front of her was very condescending and was not at all okay.
Hello, my friends. I'm so happy to be with you today. I feel like it has been a minute and it's only been 2 weeks, but that's too long for me. If you are just reaching us for the first time and you are a parent of a child who has medical needs, or you are a healthcare provider, or an aspiring child life specialist, or you just care about kids and healthcare experiences, you have found yourself at the right place. And today I get to introduce you to the most amazing woman. Her name is Julie Walters. She has 2 children. They are both neurodivergent. She is also neurodivergent. And she and I go into what it is like to be a medical parent of a child with medical complexities, including epilepsy and autism. And we also talk about the motivation that she has inside of her to make things different for other parents than she got when she entered the medical parenting world. I couldn't be more honored to introduce you to Julie, and just please know that if you may show up here today and maybe your child doesn't have the exact same diagnosis that Julie's children have, but I promise you, you will connect with Julie because the feelings and the experiences and the emotions, they're all very, very similar. So regardless of how you're showing up today, please know that you will leave this conversation less isolated than you came into it today. And I hope that makes you share it with another parent who's going through something difficult, and know that there are other people out there like Julie who are willing to share their stories, talk about the hard things, and then are so motivated to go out there and create a different world for others. Julie, so lucky to have you here.
I'm Julie Walters, and I have 2 children, and they are both neurodivergent. I'm neurodivergent myself. It's a very important part of my identity. And I'm also a female entrepreneur. And things that are important to me are inclusion and health equity. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that, Julie. Have you always been into health equity and inclusion, or is this something new since your parenthood journey?
So, growing up, my mom has schizoaffective disorder. So, there was a lot of adversity in
Mm.
finding resources. So, I pretty much consider myself being an advocate since I was a very little girl using phone books to find
Yeah.
services and help, and even figuring out how to pay my way through college using a lot of those kind of things. So, I've always been an advocate for kind of the marginalized, people who don't have access to services. There's like a social justice piece of me that doesn't sit well, that
Yeah.
inequality. And so, yeah, so I think it's just my nature, I guess.
It's amazing. I see that in you too and what you've created. And it's that piece that's like you've been through it and you didn't have what you needed. So you want to make sure that people who go through it in the future have what they need because you didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Well, walk us through kind of the beginning of finding out that something was going on, kind of the reason that you and I were able to get connected, and when you entered the medical world for the first time with your child.
Okay, so I was a first time mom, and I was like planning her birthday party, her first birthday, the invitations, the whole thing. It was like a baby wedding, basically. One night, we woke up to this like weird sound and picked her up, and she just didn't seem right. I didn't know what it was. So I was like, oh, she's got a little fever, and I had read like every book. I wanted to be so prepared. And I was like, okay, so I gave her baby Tylenol, put her back to sleep. And then we had this little angel care baby monitor. And I remember my husband was like, this thing is like ridiculously expensive. And I'm like, but it's the best. And we should get, because I did all the research. It actually probably wound up saving her life because it went off. And it was because she was having a seizure and she stopped breathing. And so I went to her crib. Her face was blue. There was like, bubbles coming out of her mouth. I was like, oh, usually will go into a calm state. I'm really,
Yeah.
in situations like that, because I think I've dealt with so many of them since I was little, like my body just takes action. And I was like, yeah, I think it's a febrile seizure. I read about these in my book. So I called the urgent care, the off hours pediatrician. And then she had another one. And I
Wow.
was like, okay, so we called 911. And then she continued to have multiple seizures, and she was turning blue each time and desatting. And, at the time I didn't know it was even desatting. I didn't know what was happening, except I thought she was dying.
Right.
And so that we wound up in the PICU for several weeks. They couldn't get the seizures to stop. And eventually, and that was kind of our introduction to epilepsy.
Wow. Walk us through some of those moments of, I know the beginning, the shock, just trying to comprehend like what is happening, what is the next right thing to do. But those beginning few days in the PICU and the steep learning curve of being thrown into a world where everyone around you is like a calm medical professional and you're inside saying like something is wrong with my baby. How did you navigate those days?
I didn't leave her side. I remember I slept in the chair or on the stool, so much so that I actually got a blood clot in my leg because I sat the whole time. So then they had to like take me out. I had my first panic attack at the hospital. I'd never had a panic attack before. I didn't know what one was, but I remember like, and the
Wow.
nurse had to come in, and I just felt like I was dying because and that was like after maybe the first like 4 days because she just wasn't waking up and no one could tell me, what was wrong, and things weren't happening fast enough. And I am a knowledge seeker. I always like to know all the facts and then even more facts. And
Right.
so it was a complete nightmare. I remember texting people and then it was like not even someone I knew, like it was the wrong number. Like my brain was just not working.
Yeah.
So I didn't know she was going to wake up. I didn't know anything. She wasn't the same child, definitely. She didn't recognize me, and that scared me because before, we were hospitalized, she was very attached to me. And so I
Right.
just thought, what happened? Like, is it the medication? I just didn't know. I
Yeah.
just remember being very scared, but also like figuring out what are the next steps? How do I get her the best care? And it's kind of an interesting little tidbit or little story is that it was actually another mom who they were in the PICU across from us. And I remember we had like dueling pulse oxes, like our pulse ox would go off, the nurses would run in, they would bag my daughter. And then they would, same night, like the nurses, and this one nurse was pregnant. I felt so bad for her. she she would run back over, and then they were bagging this other kid that I didn't know what they were doing in there. But the mom came over. She's still my friend to this day. Turns out both of us did not know our daughters actually have the same gene mutation, but we didn't know it at the time. They're only 6 months apart, which is very random. And she handed me a book and she said, here's a book about epilepsy and had all these different, like the known syndromes at the time. And I started opening it and reading it. And I was like, oh, I think we're dealing with like a genetic syndrome. Like there's something, and then I started learning and I brought it up to the neurologist. And so it was another mom who helped me and I was able to bring that to the neurologist's attention.
That is an incredible story. The fact that you guys were across the hall from each other in the same hall, the same ICU. Wow.
Yeah. And our girls, yeah, they're teenagers now.
Wow,
And
that's
we
pretty
still,
amazing.
yeah, that they had the same gene mutation. That just, I can't, that's just so odd to me because it's rare. It's not like it's common.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what anybody believes. Half the time I don't know what I believe, but like that is kind of like a universe divine intervention. Wow, to be so close to each other. For that mom who is listening to this and is kind of on the brink of what you experienced at the beginning, not leaving the bedside to the point of getting a blood clot, having a panic attack, what are some of the things you wish you would have had or and not even wish you would have had because your story is your story and it's an important part of who you are. But what do you hope has changed since you went through that experience?
I think a lot of, my reaction was I wasn't getting enough information from the medical
Mm.
staff at that time. Now my daughter's 16 now. I think things have changed. There's more on the internet that you can find. There just wasn't much. And
Yeah.
so the not knowing and I really caused me to panic, and so I would be looking at like the nurse's face to just see like what is, does she think my daughter's going to be okay? Does she think she's not going to be okay? And trying to get any sort of information.
Yeah.
And so I would say I wish that I had kind of what we have access to now actually, which is more information. For me, information is is like so important to me, having knowledge and being able to take action. And when you feel, and at the time, maybe even now, if this were happening, even though I can read information, I can't make the seizure stop. My husband and I handled it very differently. I would say this is just a time that you have to get through it in the way that your nervous system and your neurotype and every experiences you've ever had allows you to best do. And then, focus on getting through each day. And then when you kind of get to the next phase, when you start learning more, your child is not in this beginning phase, like, maybe what you're dealing with, then you can come back, and reassess. But I don't think during those beginning times, no matter how much someone might have said to me, take care of yourself or make sure to eat, or
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done it because my system was focused on like, I need to help my daughter.
Yeah. It's such a good point. Like, it's just a moment to moment. There isn't, unfortunately, a magic fix. And if we find it, we will let everyone know. What has your system for regulating now as your daughter grows up and meets new milestones and, copes with things that are just coming as you grow up to be an adolescent? And if you find yourself, I know a lot of parents tell me like that pulse ox goes off and you're right back in that picky room like you were before. Is that something that you have maybe gotten, I don't want to say accustomed to, but gotten familiar with? Like, you recognize those signs and symptoms in your body throughout the years?
Oh, definitely. I definitely have trauma. And I think I recognized I already had it, right, from being a small child. So it was almost like I almost had the PTSD. So I think it affected me maybe somewhat differently than someone who hadn't already had those sort of situations. It's different when you're a mom versus being a daughter, but it's
Right.
still that one kind of other human that's closest to you.
Yeah.
If I see an ambulance sometimes, I will tear up because and it's sometimes, most of the time I don't, but there's days when maybe it's been a rough day or I'm just kind of depleted. I will hear a siren and just be like, because it just happens. I still hear the pulse ox because, false alarms. So,
Right.
but when I hear it now, it's kind of a soundtrack to our life. I'm used to
Mm.
hearing it. I know what I need to do. I know I need to get up. I need to go check, and I kind of know the steps. So it's not like I, jump up and, nosedive down the hallway and like slot, it's not that kind of thing anymore because now she's not doing well. She's like right next to me. So I kind of have to learn to like also not let that affect her.
Yeah.
And that's really because I noticed my reaction, or I would like be at the playground and another kid would fall. And I'm like, oh, people are looking at me like, what is that? Like, helicopter parent, you are like the worst. And it's because they don't realize I am used to responding to a seizure. When I hear a thump, whether it's my kid and I see a little body go
Yeah.
down, that's my initial reaction is, okay, like save them, help them.
True.
So it happens all the time. And I am used to it. And I'm used to that reaction. I think you get used to whatever your thing is, because I don't want to be complacent to it and
Right.
just be like, oh, because I can't risk that. My daughter can't risk that. So, but I also don't, because I can see she's learned, oh, so when you do this, it means you love me and you care about me. When
Mhm.
you make sure that I wear my pulse up because she doesn't like it, and I get that. But so we
Yeah.
got her a different one. We finally got one that's not attached to her toe. She finally has one on her thumb, which is awesome, or on her finger. And she realizes, and just the other day, she came up and she hugged me and she said, "You saved my life."
We're so grateful to have Paine's Instant Topical Anesthetic Spray as our sponsor of today's podcast. Help control pediatric procedural pain associated with needle procedures and minor surgical procedures while improving patient satisfaction. Paine's Instant Topical Anesthetic Spray works immediately. It is a non-drug and non-flammable topical spray that can be used to temporarily relieve the pain associated with minor surgical procedures and needle procedures. Pain Ease is a medical device and does not contain medication. It can be a safe and effective alternative for lidocaine injections when used to temporarily control pain associated with immunizations, IV starts, blood draws, foreign body removals, and suturing or suture removal, to name a few. PayNees works on a 3-step process. First, prepare the site and equipment for the procedure per your facility's protocol. Second, apply PayNees by spraying about a can's distance away for 4 to 10 seconds or until the skin begins turning white. Finally, perform the procedure. The anesthetic effect of PayNees lasts about 1 minute and can be reapplied as many times as necessary. Refer to application instructions for full details. Important risk and safety information. Consult your pediatrician when using on children 4 years old and younger. Do not use on large areas of damaged skin, puncture wounds, animal bites, or serious wounds. Do not spray in eyes. Overspraying may cause frostbite. Freezing may alter skin pigmentation. Use caution when using product on persons with poor circulation. Apply only to intact oral mucous membranes. Do not use on genital mucous membranes. The thawing process may be painful and freezing may lower resistance to infection and delay healing. If skin irritation develops, discontinue use. Caution: federal law restricts this device to sale by or on the order of a licensed healthcare practitioner. Studies suggest that PayNees does not induce vasoconstriction, does not contaminate a site that has been cleansed, and is preferred by patients and practitioners. PayNees comes in 2 different spray pattern variations, medium stream and mist. It is also available in 2 sizes, 3.9 ounces or 1 ounce single patient. Gebauer appreciates the care and comfort that you provide to pediatric patients. Visit gebauer.com/PayNees with no space to learn how PayNees can make visits more comfortable.
Like, she's realizing now, like, all these, and she's 16, like, you do all these things, this is how she processes it, that I don't necessarily like. I have to take this medicine. I have all these limitations, but it's so I'm here. I have to go to the doctor and I have to, do all this stuff. So I realized if I look at it and I express it as, oh my gosh, I have to do this. I woke up because the pulse ox woke me up 10 times last night. Like, I need to, for myself, I need to watch that, right? I wouldn't want to hear someone say that about me, that
Yeah.
it's hard for them. And it's not the child at all. She's the most amazing person. It is that stupid buzzer. Like, someone needs to fix that. Like, someone needs to make it a bit different now. I get why it needs to be that way, but it's the situation. And so
It's so true. What is your prescription now for when you have a medical appointment, maybe with a team that doesn't know her well, or you're going in? How do you make sure it's as successful as it can be?
I'm a great planner. We were in the ER one time a couple years ago, and I noticed the way she was being talked about in front of her was very condescending and was not at all okay with me. And so we'll pull aside if we are like in the ER for something or someone doesn't know her. Usually if it's like in a rushed situation, our like primary care doctors know us and you don't have an issue.
Right.
I'll pull them aside and say, hey, when we go in the room, I just want to make sure that you understand, that you need to talk to her in a respectful way, and I will say that. And at first, maybe I felt like I shouldn't have to say that. I would have thought until I started hearing, wow, you're talking to another human being like they're not here in a way that would completely offend you if somebody talked about you like that.
Yeah.
And so those kind of things, I just want to make sure the language that they are using is respectful.
Yeah. It takes courage to do that the first few times. What has your response been from the care team when you've advocated for that?
It depends on the person. It really depends. So sometimes, like, I did get yelled at. Well, we're just trying to take care of the situation at hand, and I said, I understand that, but you cannot do that because we don't want to leave here with more problems than we came with. And if now somebody's self-esteem is hurt and now they don't trust medical professionals, that's going to be a problem for us. So, and that's the truth. We don't want to leave distrusting the people who are supposed to care for us because they're disrespectful of us and not affirming, and neuroaffirming and assuming competence.
Yeah. Oh, God, I love you. I want to bottle you up and just bring you everywhere to say that speech. You've ended up creating the thing you needed. I would love to hear about when you started building the connected parent and everything that you've done together.
Okay, so the connected parent, it came about after COVID and after just talking to a lot of friends and like a lot of people It's a pretty basic, simple idea, actually. Like a lot of people have the idea. It's not like a new idea or anything like that. It's the execution of the idea. And I think it's something all parents have discussed with their medical parents, with their friends. Like, I wish there was a place, and there should be a place like a Yelp or something for families like ours. I've talked about it with numerous different people and friends. And then finally, I told my friend, I said, I think I'm going to do this. Like, I think we're going to build this out. I talked to my husband. I was like, this is going to cost our savings. And, it's either we buy a house or we do this. And when I'm 80, I don't care if I am a renter, but I care if I haven't made a dent or at least tried to make a dent in a really big problem. So we decided to build essentially a Yelp-like platform for families who have children who are disabled, who are neurodivergent, or have medical complexities or any issues that really make it hard to find what you need. The final two straws that kind of broke mama's back in this case were that we had to find a school for my daughter through her IEP, and we needed it to be a very specialized school, and we were given like the school gives you a certain number of days, and we almost didn't find the school because it wasn't on Google. It was very tiny. There were like 6 students at the time, and none of the moms that I had talked to had heard of it until I got to the final mom on like the final day. And, it was really, and this school was 20 minutes from my house. I shouldn't have not known about it. And so
Yeah.
she almost missed the school. And Violet says that school healed her broken heart. They changed the trajectory of her life as far as we're concerned. It's amazing. And she was very unhappy where she was and wasn't making progress. And now just the world's opened for her in ways we didn't think a school could provide, and it has. And then finding a camp for her. I, was easily able to find a camp for her brother.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, how come he gets to go and I don't get to go? And I was like, you're right. That's not fair. And so it wasn't that there weren't any. Now there aren't enough for sure, but we needed to be able to find one. It shouldn't take longer. Like we already have extra things as medical parents or parents that are dealing with, all the paperwork and stuff. And so I wanted to just make it so you could find it, read the reviews from your friends. You don't have to text them and then they have to tell 20 people the same thing. Oh, we liked it. Or, that's great if you want to do that. But I want it efficient. Like I like things that are really efficient. So that's what we try to do here and put everything in one place so you can find it, whether it's, whether it's something very specific, right? Or very general. So if it's something like PCDH19, for example, that's for rare disease, I can go in and look at her neurologist review and there's a hashtag PCDH19. So if I'm dealing with a rare disease, I can literally find a review from another parent with my hashtag. And now we have a community where you can actually find other parents by using that same hashtag. So we're building that out. And so that way, because there might be a parent right near me. And if they're not on Facebook, we may never find each other. And I love that my daughter has friends that live with the same rare disease as her. And so, yeah, that's kind of what we're building and what you can find and why.
So you can find anything from camps to doctors to recommendations on medical supplies or resources, or what all is included in it.
We have so much. So if you're in California, like even state specific things, like if you're a regional center client, you can find, well, what are the things that are vendorized? What are the things they're actually going to pay for me, that are vendors. So we have that, but we have anything from a speech therapist to a camp, transportation. Like my daughter's interested now in like, where am I going to go and how am I going to get there? Adult resources, because so many times if your child kind of ages out of all the supports, there's like this cliff. So we focus on adding adult resources, but really anything from like DMI, like all these things that people may not have heard of. And so we have kind of an area where you can like click on like educational and then see all the things. So an advocate, an attorney, we have a section where you can find grants. We have service animals, and then we have filters. So the filters work. So if I want to find a provider and I only want to use providers that are neurodiversity affirming, we work with a speech therapist to decide what's our criteria for neurodiversity affirming. And then the providers have to agree to that. We have a large listing, probably one of the largest listings of universal changing tables. Is it wheelchair accessible, sensory friendly? And we didn't make criteria for that because sensory friendly for one of my children is not sensory friendly for my other child. And so we really want those reviews to come in and say, this is sensory friendly. What does that
Yeah.
mean to our family and my
Right.
child or me? You can't really have a criteria like you can for neuro affirming or, things like that. But some things are very individual and we really want the like richness of the reviews. But anyway,
Right.
back to your point, like can't, and pretty much if a parent reaches out and says, if there was a new kind of therapy I hadn't heard of, she's like, can you add a category for this? I was like, let's add it. Do you know some
Yeah.
resources? And she could go in herself. She did and added the resources. We go in on the back end and actually look up like what do they actually do? Are there more things they do? And then we categorize them and everything like that. And then we put them on the site.
I am kind of like an IT geek myself, and like this sounds incredible. This is just amazing what you built.
Thanks. I appreciate it. And it's free. That was very important to us is that we're able to at this point provide it for free and we hope that it will be able to stay that way.
Yeah. What is it like when your daughter sees you work on it? Does she know what you do?
Oh yeah, she works here. She's like on our Instagram. She does jokes every week. She gives me advice. Both of my kids told me the name is horrible. We need to change it because they use the site. And so why is it the connected parent? And I was like, that is a very valid point. And we may have to change the name in the future because they
Yeah.
like using the site. And they like on Instagram, one of the videos like went viral and it's one that Violet's in and she like checks like, where are we? How are we doing? And like
Right.
she likes to work on content. She gets to go, to conferences with me, and she's going to be doing a guest lecture at a university, kind of
Wow.
about living with PCDH and 18 epilepsy and like things she does to like stay healthy, for her mental health and things like that. So she's enjoying this a lot. She signs the cards that go out, like if we sell a shirt or something like that, or we send something to a clinical practice, like when we send things out to them for their windows and things like that. She's completely involved in it as much as she wants to be. If she
Right.
doesn't want to be, then she won't be, but she loves it.
It's so probably empowering to work together on something too. And she sees you and how inspired, like, so I think of my daughter who's only 6, but she's like, "Child life specialists work at the computer." And I'm like, "They don't, babes." Like, they actually work in the hospital, but she knows, "I'm a child life specialist, I'm at the computer all the time." But you see and you kind of wanna watch what your parent does, and so it's really cool to hear you talk about how Violet has seen you create and build, and she can start to do that for herself too.
Yeah, it is. She's a teenager, so she doesn't always want to do what I do anymore. She's
Right.
like, I kind of want to do the opposite of what you're doing because it's
Yes,
you and you're my mom.
it's you.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, tell our listeners how they can get on the Connected Parent and how they can follow you.
Okay, cool. So you just go to the connectedparent.net and you can sign up for a free account. And if you want to, you can go into the area that says community. It's our new area, and you can search for my name. I'm in there under Neuro Affirming Mama. And then you can follow me. And if you follow me, you can see all the reviews I've written. And then I hope that you will also write some reviews and I can follow you back and we can find reviews for different things.
Amazing. And it's for anybody in the US, not just California, correct?
Yeah, anyone in the United States. We have because we're run by families. We're owned and
Okay.
operated by families. So we have parents in different states who work here entering information. And so, yeah, so you can reach out to any of us at any time. Reach out to us on our Instagram. And if there's things you want to see that we don't yet have, let us know and we'll build it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today, and go to theconnectedparent.net, sign up for your profile, and start entering your reviews.
Thank
You guys, I have the best news. If you didn't hear it at the beginning of the episode, Support Spot, our app, is now available for every parent. You no longer need a hospital code to log in. So go ahead, go to childlifeoncall.com/supportspot. So go ahead and go to childlifeoncall.com/supportspot and download our app today. Hospitals and child life specialists, yes, we are still partnering with you if you want to customize content or provide this app to your families free of charge. We're so grateful that you're here. When you rate and review this podcast, it helps other families be able to find us. So let's keep doing that. And I will see you again here next week.